بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة وعلى أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والنجم إذا هوى ما ضل صاحبكم وما غوى وما ينطق عن الهوى إن هو إلا وحي يوحى علمه شديد القوى ذو مرة فاستوى. صدق الله العلي العظيم. And by the star when it sets, your companion has neither gone astray nor gone amiss, nor does he speak of his own desire. It is just the revelation that is revealed to him, taught him by one of great power, possessed of sound judgment. This verse in the Holy Quran is obviously in reference to a few important points in Islam. One of them is the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and the other is validation of the genuinity of the Holy Prophet of Islam. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
When one happens to pass by an incident, when one, for example, is driving on the street, and as he's driving, he drives past a scene of an accident, or a scene where something terrible has happened, there is an ambulance there, there may be a body laying there, or a person that is extremely injured. There are a great number of factors as to why this incident may have happened, and there are a great number of factors that decide the way that this person will react. How will a person react? When they drive past and you see an accident, you notice that every car, for example, in front of you slows down to have a look and to see who the injured person is, or to see what has happened, what is the extent of the injury. It's just out of curiosity that we stop by and we have a look. But how many people actually get down and try and help? How many people, for example, call the emergency services? How many people actually react? Or is it not usually until the professionals who are paid to react towards these situations, like the ambulance officers or the police officers, that arrive on the scene and they deal with the incident? And you see that dealing with the incident. This brings up two very important points. One is the fact that today we live in a world that is full of indifference. We live in a world where we are trained from when we are children to become indifferent towards the world, to put a monetary value on every single thing. This mentality that has been bred into us, that is among the way we think, the way we breathe, the way we believe, and this mentality has passed on to our children and on to the generations that shall come. This mentality of indifference, meaning that I really don't care what happens to somebody else as long as it doesn't affect me. When people watch on the news, you notice a lot of the time, maybe us because we have ties, for example, in other countries, we have relatives in other countries, but the majority, the mainstream of the people that live here, or the people that are citizens of this nation, will look and they're very indifferent towards the incidents that happen overseas. That they make you see the people who they, meaning the authorities that we decide are the enemy, are portrayed to you as the enemy. They are portrayed to you as people, for example, whenever they talk about any person that they label a terrorist, or any person that they label an enemy of the state, or a non-combatant, or whatever it is that they want to label them or name them, you notice they never talk to you about the fact that they have families. They never talk to you about the fact that they have loved ones. They never talk to you or put them in a tense that makes you think that they are people like you and me. That from when we are kids, if you notice now in the last 10 years or 15 years, the advent of the FPS, the first person shooter, video game. And the reason I mention video games, maybe people haven't caught on to the phenomenon of video games and the extent that they are used to manipulate the minds of our youth. That these video games that I speak about, especially the first-person shooters, that teach people to become indifferent towards killing, towards death, especially if they are part of a military or part of a military group, and it makes them feel very indifferent towards this killing. It weans them unto becoming killers. So this is the first point, the fact that we are being bred with indifference, number one. Number two, the reaction of a person that passes by an injury or an accident will be governed by the knowledge of the person that has been harmed. The Holy Prophet ﷺ has said about the Muslims that they are like one body. That all the Muslims are like one body. That if one part of the body hurts, then the other part cannot rest. That if, for example, your hand is hurting you, you can't rest. Your leg is hurting you, you can't rest. This is how the Muslim nation is. That if part of the Muslims are hurting, then the rest of them cannot rest. One. Two, the Holy Prophet says that whoever starts their day, وَمَنْ أَصْبَحَ وَلَمْ يَهْتَمْ بِأُمُورِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ فَلَيْسَ بِمُسْلِمٍ. That the one who awakens and is not affected or concerned, is not affected or concerned about what befalls our other Muslim brethren or all the Muslims in the world, then he is not a Muslim. That this is a very important point. Number two, if you actually know the people that are being harmed. Firstly, we're saying that they're Muslims, and obviously we are obliged as Muslims to care about people that are being harmed. But when we know who it is that is being harmed, this allows for a completely different reaction. For example, we said the example of driving past a car accident or seeing someone that's harmed or injured. You see that the person, people drive past and they see him. But let's change the scenario and let's say the parents come to the scene. The mother of this injured or dead person, or the father of the injured or dead person, and you see a completely different reaction, a very different reaction to the injury or the dead person. If it's the mother, you'll see the screaming, very likely she'll pass out. If it's the father, again, you'll probably see screaming. Or maybe he might beat himself. Or maybe he might swear at his son for injuring himself in this manner. That we see, depending on these factors, you have a different way of how we react to the incident. When we look at the incident that happened in Karbala, these 1,000 and a bit years ago, that we see what happened to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein salamullah alayhi. One of the most important factors that we need is that anyone that hears of this incident would be affected. Anyone that hears of this crime that happened to our Imam would be affected. However, the ones that are truly affected are the ones that actually understand who the Imam is. The ones who know who the Imam is, they're the ones that would have the true reaction. They're the ones that would be able to achieve the complete benefit of understanding what is this secret that Imam Hussein alayhi salam left behind for us. What is the true meaning and the full meaning of this defense mechanism that he has left for not only the nation of Islam, but also not only for the nation of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but for all of mankind. That we need to have a thorough understanding of who this holy Imam is for us to appreciate this, especially, and I must say that in the world we live in today, if I can just mention a small incident about how indifferent people have become. We heard, for example, and I never saw it, but I heard about it on the news, about that story of that 2-year-old girl in China that was run over by several cars and nobody stopped. 2-year-old girl. Nobody stopped to see how she was injured or the effect of her injury. That this is how indifferent people are. That I'm on my way to work, I don't have time for an injured 2-year-old. That I'm on my way to a meeting, I don't have time for an injured 2-year-old. That I'm on my way to whatever it may be. And it doesn't affect them, and it doesn't bother them. And you know what? The more violence that we see, and the more violence that we are exposed to, reduces the effect that we feel or we see when it happens. However, with all of the history of the violent wars and the battles that have taken place. Never in the history of mankind has there been a story of the magnitude of what happened to Abu Abdullah Hussein and his family and his faithful companions. For us to fully comprehend this story, we need to understand who this great man is. For us to understand who this great man is, we need to understand the meaning of life. Because he taught us the meaning of life. We need to understand the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His infinite mercy created us. And upon creating us, through His justice He created prophets to teach us. And of His prophets, the greatest and best was the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That only the miser when he hears the name of the Holy Prophet Muhammad does not say salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That this Holy Prophet who was chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who was chosen to be the best of His prophets and sent to this world to complete the teachings of the religion of Islam, to complete the teachings of the religion of life, and being that the religion of Islam, that this Holy Prophet, to understand the greatness of the Holy Prophet, at the same time we need to respect the fact that over the last 1400 years, from the advent of Islam, he has been bombarded by his enemies, bombarded with false media, bombarded in the books of history, bombarded today in film and television and news, etc. All these forms of media which speak bad about our Holy Prophet. That in fact the people that stole and usurped the legacy of Islam maintained to fabricate lies about the religion of Islam, to fabricate lies about our Holy Prophet ﷺ. However, given all of these lies, and given everything that we see and all of these fabrications, the remnant of a great man like this Holy Prophet would not disappear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He says in the Holy Quran, يُرِيدُونَ أَن يَطْفَئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ وَاللَّهُ مُتِمُّ نُورِهِ وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ. That Allah, that they desire, or they wish, or they will to extinguish the light of Allah with their mouths, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shall complete His light, even if the unbelievers are averse to it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has showed through the remnants of this Holy Prophet the greatness of the Holy Prophet. Just a few small points about the greatness of this Prophet. The fact that nobody in the whole history of the world has ever had a whole nation of people that send billions of praises towards him on a daily basis. No leader, no politician, no statesman, no king has ever had or left a legacy like this. No politician or statesman or anybody of importance has ever had a city named after them. Madinatul Munawwara or Madinatul Rasul is a city that is named after the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The place of his burial, the place that he is buried in, the mosque that he is buried in, although it is under the power of the enemies of the Holy Prophet, although it is under their power, still around it is constructed the largest mosque in the world. Furthermore, that the name of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad, that the name of our Prophet is the most popular name in the world. And people say that's because the Muslims have so many children all the time. It has nothing to do with that. The Christians are more in number. Why don't you say the Christians naming their son Jesus? Why don't you say the Christians naming their son these names? They don't. But out of reverence and respect to the Holy Prophet, the amount of us that name that name. So can you believe that a person who 1400 years after his legacy is somebody that is still remembered and praised by 1.5 billion people around the world, that they revere him so much that they name their children after him? In fact, they try and have at least one child in every family that is named after the Holy Prophet. How could a person like this be someone who they depict as a man of violence, a man that spread Islam via the sword, a man that mistreated people, obviously these are lies and fabrications about this Holy Prophet, because you tell me of anyone that left a legacy like this. Furthermore, without going into too much detail, we see the legacy of the Holy Prophet, that he was sent among a people that were so backwards and primitive and paganistic, the Arabs of the time, who were so backwards that they had no form of civilization, they had no form of nation, they lived in a tribalistic manner. Survival of the fittest, they would annihilate each other, they would go to war with each other, they would fight with each other. And this Holy Prophet transformed these people in a period of 13 years to become one nation. And his legacy over the next 200 years, through his legacy, through the holy Imams and the teachings of the holy Imams, the doors of science were opened up. And I know I mentioned this maybe a lot of times, regarding the doors of science being opened up through the religion of Islam, but you go and have a look at who the pioneers of medicine are, and they are Islamic scholars and Islamic scientists. That's what they are. You go and have a look at who the pioneers of electronics are, and they are the Islamic scientists. You go and have a look at who the pioneers of physics are, the original ones. Go and have a look. Go and read up of mathematics, and you will see that they are Islamic scholars, and these teachings were then taken by the British Empire, and their books are still, our books are still within their libraries to this day, and they were spread forth through their scholars, through their Sir Isaac Newtons, through the other scholars that learned through these teachings and through these books, which broadened their minds, and they were able to advance this knowledge. And this is the truth. Now, are you telling me that these primitive people evolved in a period of 200 years from being tribalistic and paganistic to being the pioneers of modern day technology, modern day science, the internet, video technology, sound technology, whatever you want to call it? All of these technologies, that they were the pioneers from what? From nothing. This is the remnant of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This same Prophet, who is the best Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is known as Habibullah, that he has got this level, he has reached this level that he is the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the most intimate person to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in this verse that we mentioned at the start of the Holy Quran, Surah Al-Najm, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about how close this Holy Prophet was to him. Now this Holy Prophet, whom we all follow and we all obey, and based on these verses in the Holy Quran, وَمَا يَنْطِقْ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ, that he is not one that speaks of his own desire, that he doesn't just make things up and then say them, he doesn't bring things out of his pocket. It is what is revealed unto him, that he then teaches and preaches to the people. That this same Holy Prophet, when he is in prostration, and a young child, who is Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, comes and sits on the back of the Prophet, and this Prophet remains in prostration until this child feels the need to get off his back and move away. What does this mean? In Arabic is not just speaking, it's also action. That this action in itself speaks volumes about the personality of Imam al-Hussein even as a child. That this Holy Prophet ﷺ would walk, or sometimes they say he would crawl, and place on his back Imam al-Hussein ﷺ, and he would place on his back Imam al-Hasan, and people would walk past and say, how lucky are these two riders, that they are riding the Prophet of Allah. And the Prophet would say, no. Do not say how lucky are the riders, but how lucky is the mount, the one that has them on his back. This is what the Holy Prophet says about these two. Is this because he loves them? Is this just because he is a loving grandfather? But don't you remember that this loving grandfather doesn't speak of his own talk. He doesn't speak what he feels. He speaks what is revealed unto him. He is an obedient servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he tells us and reminds us this all the time, that he is Abdullah wa Rasulah, that he is the slave and servant of Allah and his messenger. And this is what he says about Imam al-Hussein. That this same Holy Prophet says, Husaynun minni wa ana min Husayn. Husaynun minni, clear as crystal. That Imam Hussein alayhi salam is from the lineage of the Holy Prophet, that Imam Hussein alayhi salam is the fulfillment of the prophecy in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Kawthar. That he is the fulfillment of the prophecy in Surah Al-Kawthar, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him great abundance from his daughter Fatima. But the second part of the tradition, Ana min Hussein, that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is from Hussein. Who can comprehend this tradition? Who can comprehend that part of what the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is saying? What is the greatness of the Holy Imam? What is the secret in the greatness of this Holy Imam if the Holy Prophet says this about him? What is the importance of this Holy Imam? That we must learn and understand the greatness of who this Holy Imam is. The greatness of what he done for mankind. The greatness of what he done for Islam. These things that he did. These things that he did for Islam. These things that he did for mankind. Hold greatness, and the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam doesn't speak like this of them for no reason. He says about Al-Hasan al-Hussein, Sayyiday Shabab Ahl al-Jannah, that they are the masters of the youth of paradise. And so to revoke this statement, or to try and fabricate the statement of the Holy Prophet, the enemies of Islam said, well, X and Y are Shaykhain, Sayyiday Shaykhain Ahl al-Jannah, Shaykhay Ahl al-Jannah, that these two are the princes of the old people of paradise. And we know full well that there will be no old people in paradise, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make everyone back into youth. That this is obviously a fabrication. We then hear the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, and you know what, the majority of these traditions are not only available in our sources, but in sources of the mainstream Muslims, that we see that the other Muslims even know this, that the Holy Prophet says about Al-Hasan al-Hussein, Silmun liman salam, wa harbun liman harabun, that I am at peace with whoever is at peace with you, and I am at war with whoever is at war with you. Then he says about them, that they are both Imams, whether they rise or they sit. That he says about them, that whoever angers them also angers me, and whoever angers me angers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That when we see this about our Holy Imam, that this great Prophet has spoken all of these things about this Imam, there must be something very special about this Holy Imam. There must be something very important about this Holy Imam. For this Holy Imam, through his actions, creates a defense mechanism for all the Muslims, nay, for all the oppressed. We need to learn and understand who this Imam is. We need to learn about the qualities of this Imam and to follow the qualities of this Imam. To have an understanding of the qualities of this Imam and to place them into our lives. When we look at Imam Hussein alayhi salam, some of the qualities of the Holy Imam, we see that, remember this is an important point that we need to remember about the history of Islam, especially when we talk about Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the qualities of the Imam, that when they usurped the Khalifa, when they usurped the Khalifa and they took the position of Khalif, that during the reign of Abu Bakr, and during the reign of Umar, and during the reign of Uthman, that never did one of these people give a single position to any of the Ahl al-Bayt of Muhammad, but not one position. Not a position of a police officer, not a position of a governor, not a position of nothing. Not one position. That you have to understand that during this time, this is the way it was, that they were so afraid that they might lose their status, that they wouldn't even give them one position. Imagine this, that you have the holy household whom the Prophet spoke about, whom the Prophet told them on various occasions, on too many occasions, إِنِّي تَارِكٌ فِيكُمْ ثَقَلَيْنِ, that I have left with you two hefty weights, Kitab Allah, وَعِتْرَةِ أَهْلَ بَيْتِ, that I have left with you the book of Allah and my holy household, and these two things will never part. That you can't have one and leave the other, that you need to have both. That he says to them, I leave you these two, and they don't even give them the position of a policeman. Nothing. No position, no status. And then we hear about that in the Medina al-Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ibn Abbas, who was obviously a companion of the Holy Prophet, and this companion of the Holy Prophet held such a high status among the Muslims even to this day that there is a lot of narrations that are of Ibn Abbas. In fact, he is known as Habr al-Ummah, the ink of the nation. That he is known as the ink of the nation. Ibn Abbas sees the Holy Imam, sees Imam al-Hasan and sees Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. Whenever he saw them about to leave or to go somewhere or to mount their horse or their donkey, he would hold the reins of the horse to allow the Imam to get on. And then he would fix their clothes while they were on it for them to leave. That doing this isn't the job of somebody of high status. You're meant to get, for example, your slave to help you get on the horse. But we're talking about Ibn Abbas is the one that is helping them to get onto the horse. That he's somebody that is well respected. The reason I say this is they didn't understand the true status of the holy Imams, even though the Prophet said it. But they treated the holy Imams in a way as if the Prophet ﷺ had told them that after I go, I want you to attack my household. After I go, I want you to harm my household. So Ibn Abbas was helping them on the horse, and one of the other companions came up and he says, why do you treat them like this? Why do you do them this favor by helping them up on the horse? And Ibn Abbas says to him, woe unto you, you fool. Do you know who these two are? These two are the sons of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is who these two are. The sons of Rasulullah. It is a bounty upon me that Allah has given me the ability to serve these two. This is what he tells me. That I should thank Allah for this bounty that I have the ability to serve these two. That this is the status of who these two are. That understand at the time, they didn't hold a position that could get you a job. They didn't hold a position that could lose you a job. You notice that, for example, when some of the poets would walk in and they'd speak great words about Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, or they would speak great words about some of the other people who had no value in Islam. And they would speak good words. Why? Because by speaking good words, maybe they would get money, or they would get status, or they would get position, or they would earn safety. But with Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain alayhi salam, you wouldn't have got this at that time. You wouldn't have got this at that time in terms of a worldly perspective. So they are treating them in this manner strictly on their benefit, that when strictly on their merits. That when we speak about Imam Hussain alayhi salam, that Al-Hasan al-Hussain used to walk to Hajj. And they say that Al-Hasan al-Hussain alayhi salam had walked to the Hajj 25 times barefoot. That today the people that go to Hajj, and I've been to Hajj with people that are professional athletes, and they still find it very difficult. Professional athletes that are very physically fit, and they find it difficult. And we're going in aeroplanes with excellent service. We're staying in 5-star hotels in the Medina. We're going in covered buses because there's no uncovered buses from Medina to Mecca. We have all of the best facilities, and people still find it hard. You're talking about Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain alayhi salam used to go on foot over 25 times. And then when they used to walk on foot, because obviously the main roads are easier than the side roads, but they would walk on foot. But whenever anybody would see them, and they also go into Hajj, the other people would be on mounts, they would be on horses, they would be on mounts or horses. When they see the Imams, out of respect for the Imams, they would get down and walk. They would get down and walk. They would walk beside them to the extent that Imam al-Hasan and Imam Hussain alayhi salam felt so guilty about making these people walk for them that they started to take the back roads. And that took even longer, and it was more difficult, the back roads, so the people couldn't see them and wouldn't have to do this. That when the Imam would reach the Kaaba, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and walk around the Kaaba, they say that they almost trampled him to death. Salamullah alayhi wa sallam. They almost trampled him to death from how many people wanted to just send their salam to him. From how many people wanted to just touch him. From how many people just wanted to get the barakah of being next to him. That they almost trampled him to death. That even the enemies, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, in front of all of the people, and Abdullah ibn Zubayr, again we spoke about him. He was the one who turned his father Az-Zubayr against Imam Ali alayhi salam in the Harb of Jamal, in the war of the Camel. And this same one would walk up and greet the two Imams. And people will say, what